There, Jason, what would I do now? Again, write, if you will, the word slope for your notes. You will remember that slope comes from the basic general formula when we had a linear equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Many times in math, this little letter right here, the letter M, stands for slope. It doesn't have to, but when we talk about slope, that's usually the letter we use for it. A little like Einstein's E equals mc squared. On a side note, E equals mc squared. A lot of times in math, C, the letter C we use to stand for the speed of light. In this case, the letter M doesn't stand for slope, it actually stands for mass. And I believe E stands for energy. But that's not the case. In this case, the letter M, when we talk about slope-intercept, is the slope. Now let us review this just briefly here. You will remember that if you have a line, which I happen to have right there, look at how that happened. Let me draw this. I'm going to draw it as best I can. My own little graph. I should have thought ahead and actually copied you the graph, but sometimes it's good for you to draw your own stuff. It's not bad, is it? On a scale of 1 to 10? 7.
Or solid 8. A solid 2.
I'll give you 9 and a half. Solid 2. Alright, if I would have, wow, how come the lines got so crookedy? They're squiggly. If I have a dot here and a dot here, and my line goes through this like that, and my line goes through this like this, and I asked you to find the slope, actually I would, instead of writing the word slope, I'd go M equals. Remember we made this little triangle thing? Remember that way back in the day? You go down from this point, go over from this point, color this little triangle, and if this line would have gone through the right place, it would look a little better. Remember that? Remember that back in the day? Yes. Good. What is the slope of this line right here? Well, slope is, you should have this and put this in your mind, the top is the up number, and the bottom is the over number. The top is the up number, and the bottom is the over number. How tall is my triangle? It is 1, 2, 3 high, right? And it is how far over? Somebody? Yes, 2. Thank you for that. So my slope, and because it goes uphill, it's a positive slope, right? Nothing earth-shattering yet, right? Let me say yes, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, because what you are going to do is this, children. We're taking this one step farther, a little more complicated, a little more difficult. We are actually going to use what the book likes to call and what math people call the slope formula. The slope formula. Repeat after me. Slope formula. And here it is. Write it down. So the next time you see it, you'll say, I know what that is. That's the slope formula. The slope formula is this. Slope formula. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Makes sense. And I did this for a reason, because you will be able to see this in its why that is the slope formula. Because they're not going to all give you a line, they're just going to give you 2 points that make a line. And I'm going to write down the coordinates of this point. What is this point here? That point there is 1, 2, is it not? Yes. 1, 2. And this point here is -1, -1, is it not? Did I go too fast for you there? This point here, you want me to blow it up? Would it help if I made this bigger so you could see it? Sure, why not? This point is 1, 2, and this point is -1, -1. Good? You are going to then just plug those points into your slope formula because you don't want to have to draw a grid and a line every time. You just are going to be able to take these 2 points, put it into this formula, and you will get this slope that we came up with right there. How does that work, you ask? Step number 1. Thank you for asking. Step number 1. What color? The first thing you need to do is label your points. And some of you will listen to me on this and some of you won't. Some of you will go off on your own and then you'll come ask me and say, I don't understand why I got this wrong. And I'll say, well, did you follow my simple rules? And you'll say, no. And I'll say, well, most of you deserve it. Which means this. You know that these are X and Y points, right? And it doesn't matter which one you pick to be which. But you got to call these the X sub 1s and the X sub 2s. When you have this little thing down here on the bottom here, it's called a subscript. It's not an exponent. It doesn't square anything. It's really just a different way to label it. Because we have 2 Y points here, we need a way to tell which one is which. And you get to pick. Usually because this comes first, I call these the little subscript 1s. So this would be X sub 1, and it goes with Y sub 1. This one is X sub 2, and it goes with Y sub 2. It doesn't matter. You could call these the sub 2s and those the sub 1s, but you can't intermix them. In other words, I can't call this X1 and that Y2. These both have to, since they're the same point, they have to be the 1s, and these have to be the 2s, or these both have to be the 2s, and those are the 1s. But you can't mix them up. You can't put a 1 here and a 2 there, and a 2 there and a 1 there. Don't work that way. Right, Keith? So there's step number 1. Make sure you have your points labeled. Step number 2 is simply to use the slope formula. Now it comes highly recommended, highly I tell you, highly recommended that you use parentheses. Again, some of you are just too lazy and don't believe that this makes any difference at all. Did I spell that right? Because that doesn't look right. Parentheses, is that right? How do you spell parentheses? How do you spell it?
Parentheses.
Massey.
Parentheses.
Do it like you're in the spelling bee. Parentheses. Matter of fact, stand up. Your word, Brianna, is parentheses. Mr. Hahn needs to know how to spell parentheses.
P-A-R-E-N-T-H-E-S.
I think you're right. I'll go with you. Yeah, thank you. Parentheses. Which means, children, this is how this would look. Here, I'm going to blow this up here. So here are my... This is my formula. These are the points I'm plugging in. I will use red. So, slope equals, I'm going to put parentheses, that's my y2 minus my y1 over my x2 minus my x1. And now I'll put those points in there. Y sub 2 is my y sub 2, that's -1. Y sub 1, I made this one, which is 2. X sub 2 was this one, which is a -1. And X sub 1 was regular 1. Now, do you think that's going to come up with our 3 over 2? Sure doesn't look like it at this point, does it? Keith is doubting me. Well, let's look. What is a -1 and a -2? -3. What is a -1 and another -1? -2. What is a -3 over a -2? 2 negatives make it positive. My slope should be 3/2. Ladies and gentlemen, what was my slope? Just in case you didn't see it.
So, wow.
decide which one is which Brits.
Yeah, because I had them labeled. Remember, I said, you have to label these. This is your x point, that's your y point, that's your x point, that's your y point. And you get to pick. I could have made these x2, y2, and those x1, y1s, and I'll still get 3 halves. But you can't make this one x1 and that one y2. The ones have to go together and the twos have to go together. And it doesn't matter which one you pick to be one, but you gotta be consistent with it. Got that? That's why you have to pick those sort of things. Here is another example here. I am just going to randomly make up 2 points, because it doesn't matter. You'll always get a line with 2 points and it'll always have slope. Actually, I'll let you. Luke, give me a point.
-3.
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, that's half of a point. I need the rest of it. That's my -3 what? What?
-1.
-3, -1. And my other point is, Manny Marco?
You said I get that.
Yeah, you're right. Brooklyn? Any numbers. Give me 2 numbers that aren't outrageous.
-2 and 3.
Right. So, basic is just, you don't have to do this. Here's what I'm looking for. I got -3, -1, 1, 2, 3, -1, and I've got -2, 3. Here's my line. I'm looking for the slope of that line. You don't have to do this, I'm just showing you what the line would look like. So you write down your formula, f equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, that's my little formula. I have to identify what I want to call what. Just for whatever reason you want me to flip it up and make these the 2s and those the 1s. Sure will it work, or you want me to just stay consistent? It's probably best we just stay consistent. x1, y1, x2, y2. Again, you're not going to want to, but I'm going to tell you your life will be a lot better if you put parentheses for these. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 1. Y sub 2 I said was 3. Y sub 1 I said was -1. X sub 2 is -2. X sub 1 is -3. Now here's, if you struggle with positives and negatives, life's going to be a little difficult for you here, but 2 negatives together make this a positive 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. -2, 2 negatives together make that a positive 3. -2 plus 3 is 1. What is my slope? My slope is 4, or 4 over 1. We don't have to put the 1 on it, it doesn't have to be. Does that end up being the line that I just did? It sure does. How high is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. How far over is it? 1. Elijah?
What if he did 0?
Oh, well, there's Elijah asked me the question that we'll address right now, unless somebody has a question over this. Okay, here's what happens here. Okay, if you get a 0 here, let's go special cases. Special cases. If you get your slope, if when you subtract you get a 0 on the bottom, let's say you get 4 on top and a 0 on the bottom, what does that mean? Anytime you have 0 on the bottom of a fraction, it's undefined. We can't do it. You don't have it. But what is it in reality if you have a 0 on the bottom? Does anybody know what that is? If your change in x is nothing, that means when I subtracted my x values I got 0. That means it's the same x value. For you to get a 0 on the bottom, it is a vertical line. If you have a vertical line, you'll get 0 on the bottom of your fraction. And it's undefined slope. That's what it's called. If you get a 0 on top, let's say you get 0 over 3, what would the slope be? Somebody? Slope is 0. You can have a 0 slope. What type of a line is 0 slope? Well, by using deduction there, if 0 on the bottom was a vertical line, 0 on top probably is going to be, Brianna? Yeah. It's a horizontal line, and it has 0 slope. It doesn't go up at all. So if you get a horizontal line, you'll end up with this. If we have a vertical line, you'll end up with no slope. As fate would have it. Don't you feel as though you are just a little bit smarter today than you were yesterday? Did that ever come up on a MAPS test? What we really need to do is you need to tell me what came up on MAPS test so we can cover it, so we have some sort of a shot on that you didn't know how to do.
There's like
I
eyes.
don't remember.
If you get imaginary numbers, you're out of my ball league. We want everybody to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
I have no idea. A schwa.
Exactly.
I know what an I is. The letter I on those math tests, the letter I is an imaginary number, and the I actually stands for, I gotta put this, in case I'm wrong, I'm stopping this video.